Well, as the build-up continues to the budget in 3 weeks' time, the Business Council of Australia is hosting business leaders from the Hunter region to explore significant issues affecting the nation's economy. A short time ago, Chief News anchor Kieran Gilbert sat down with four of Australia's most prominent business leaders in Newcastle.
Welcome to Strong Australia in the Hunter. Great to have your company. Joining me this afternoon is Jennifer Westacott, CEO of the Business Council of Australia, Bob Hawes, Chief Executive of Business Hunter, Craig Carmody, Chief Executive Officer of the Port of Newcastle, and Guy Templeton, Chief Executive Officer at WSP. Great to have you all here in Newcastle this afternoon. A beautiful day in a thriving part of the world, Jennifer. We're 3 weeks out from the budget. What's your message to the federal government for regions like the Hunter? What needs to happen?
Well, first of all, we've got to think about the national picture. We've got to get investment going in the country again. Like, I'm here, I can see so much potential, whether it's agribusiness, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's the clean energy transition. But if we don't get investment going again, then that won't happen. So getting investment. And then there's obviously the big infrastructure play, the infrastructure projects that are needed, getting moving with the fast train strategy. And then I think there's some things that could be done in the Hunter that are very important. So I'd be doing a skills guarantee as part of that energy transition so that we get ahead of that. People can start acquiring those new skills, start thinking about new industries. And of course, outside of the budget, I'd be really focusing that National Reconstruction Fund money on places like the Hunter, places like Western Sydney, so that we really get to scale these new industries, these new capabilities for the country.
Bob Hawes, there is a good story to tell, isn't there, in terms of innovation and skills in the Hunter region?
Yeah, there is a great story. It's not only our business as usual that we have at the moment here, and we've had a tough time through COVID like every other part of Australia, but we've had industries that have really done well and continue to do well. And as we move into the new energy economy and growth in defence and other industries that are already here, we've got challenge ahead of us in developing those skills, but I think we've got the right base to work from, not only to contribute here to what the region has to offer, but also the ambitions for the nation.
Craig Carmody, the Port of Newcastle, the largest coal port in the world, as Jennifer said, she wants and would argue that the government use the National Reconstruction Fund in areas like the Hunter. Do you see scope for that here?
Yes, I do. You're quite right, world's largest coal port. We see containers and a clean energy precinct as our future. We're already the hydrogen hub for the Commonwealth in New South Wales, but that's just a start. We've actually got to build that business. We've got to build the manufacturing that comes with it, and you've got to find the workforce who's skilled and trained, and that's what that money should be used for.
We talk about the Hunter, we think of coal, understandably, Guy, but I know in your business you're looking really in a big way at clean energy, things like offshore wind.
Absolutely. So offshore wind is one of the designated areas, and the whole energy grid needs to transition. And I think there's a really valuable role for Newcastle just offshore, and also proximity to the renewable energy zones around wind and solar onshore. So there's a lot of potential in this area around energy. Yeah,
and Craig, when you talk about the future of this region, there's still 10,000 direct jobs due to coal, 30,000 and indirect jobs, and 25% of the local economy. So it's still a big part of this region. And you don't like to talk about transition, you talk about diversification. Explain that to our viewers.
Yeah, so, I mean, putting it literally, transition is moving from one state to another. We are a port that does 160 million tonne of coal. We're at the end of a valley that is one of the major exporting coal locations in the world. You cannot overnight change that. You have to diversify. So our whole strategy, and indeed this is the strategy of the region, is let's create the new businesses, let's fund them while we can afford to do so, which the current demand for coal overseas allows us to do. Let's do it now and not wait 10 years or so when we're in a crisis, and then goodness knows what happens.
Bob, you represent the whole of the business community in this region. What's the mindset when they think about that history? The history with coal and Liddell Power Station closing in the next few weeks, it's part of the change. How is the mindset towards that change?
I think there's a positive attitude in working out how we can build on it. We've talked about, there's a lot of talk about in the economy at the moment about transition authorities and working out ways and plans and communication networks to make sure that we are taking the entire community along for the ride. our community up here really believes in the skills and the industries that have been developed. And we're not talking about a substitution or an instead of, we're talking about in addition to, with all these new ideas that are coming through for the economy, particularly in the energy economy. It's an enormous task and challenge that we have ahead, but it's also an enormous opportunity. And I think that the region up here and the businesses up here believe that they can play a part in that. And if we can do that, we can keep our communities coherent. And that would be a good outcome if we can achieve that.
Jennifer, when you look at that skills story from the resources sector, but then more broadly, the John Hunter Hospital, there are other, University of Newcastle, a world-class institution. There's a good foundation upon which to build that labour market.
Absolutely. So one of the things I do in the budget, as I said, is I do a skills guarantee, so that people can start acquiring those new skills, and courses can be developed, whether it's in defence, whether it's in, advanced manufacturing, whether it's in the kind of, the incredible opportunity around agribusiness, obviously medical research. So there's a lot here, and I think it's really important not to think about the Hunter and Newcastle as a coal centre. I mean, clearly it's been a huge part of the economy, but when we were at the port this morning, the opportunities around agribusiness, the opportunities around cargo, and it's not like the demand's not going to be there. I mean, the world's growing. We're on the proximity of, the world's biggest middle class in Asia. There's so much potential. And what we need with the skills system is to come together to give people that opportunity to reskill. But we also need, I'd love to see in the budget, a STEM initiative. Because if we don't get kids coming through year 9 and 10 and 11 and 12 with those STEM skills, they won't be competitive for those jobs. And so we've got to start thinking about this in a 10, 20-year horizon, not, let's just try and catch up in 2 years when things have started to go wrong.
And there are other industries. We spoke about medical, energy. What about defence? The Joint Strike Fighter expansion at Williamtown nearby. So that skills story that Jennifer talks about, Bob, that's important to bring kids through the STEM capacity in order to fill those workforce gaps that will inevitably be there.
Yeah, absolutely. The defence story is going to be huge. The Joint Strike Fighter base up at Williamtown there is already well indentured, and we're already seeing businesses that are up there making moves to expand to grow their footprint up here. And that is going to be on top of our business as usual case. So the opportunity that the region has to do that, and timing is going to be critical. As these jobs emerge, as Jennifer says, we need the frameworks in place around education and skilling so that they can move into those jobs. The timing's critical on the basis that you've got to be able to show the kids and the people that are being retrained what they're going into, and not have them have to imagine that by themselves. So we are at that period in time though. This next 4 to 8 years is super critical for a number of industries up here in the region, and defence just being one of them.
And it is an exciting time, but it needs to be seized upon, doesn't it, Craig? When you talk about this port behind us, there is a latent capacity, isn't there? You've got room to grow the offering here.
Yeah, we are very unique in Australian ports. So it's 777 hectares of land out there, 388 of it is empty, and the channel, it's only 50% utilised. So put that in raw numbers, we can do about 10,000 ships a year, we do 4,600. When you look at Australia, or you even look at near Southeast Asia, there are very few ports with that latent capacity. And so our view is we don't have to build new stuff. We can just use what we've got as these new industries emerge, and that is a rare opportunity globally, which should keep costs down, which of course makes Australia competitive internationally.
And Guy, I know your business, WSP, is involved in some of the future planning for the port, including in future clean energy exports.
That's right. So I think you've got an opportunity there around clean energy. If you need to take any products out like ammonia through a port, then if you've got access to renewables to do that in a carbon-friendly way, and then you've got capacity alongside the docks to be able to produce it, and then to be able to get it on a ship, then I think that's a great opportunity. And the other is also, if you think about inland rail, then the SHOT review has said Parkes north to Brisbane is questionable. There's been a massive investment in the area that's already operational. We'd look at this being a good opportunity to look at upgrading from Parkes through to Newcastle, to be able to take all of those products Jennifer's mentioned, put it through Craig's Port, and you've got over 5,000 ships a year could be shipped, you've got to connect it up better. And I think there's a fantastic opportunity to look at that route.
That does make a lot of sense, doesn't it, to get that freight in, and then that fills that story about, we've heard so many times about the food bowl for Asia. You can get that agribusiness, those agricultural products through to this port and into the region.
Yeah, look, the demand for our goods and our services as well, it's just going to be huge. I mean, we saw a boat this morning going out on its way to Indonesia, being filled with incredibly valuable grain from Australia, coming out of Moree and Narrabri and those areas. And you just think about that supply chain. You know, someone's driving the train, someone's driving the truck, someone's operating the port, someone's doing the checking, someone's on the farm, someone's servicing the farm. That's just an ecosystem that is going to create a lot of jobs, a lot of high-paid jobs, a lot of jobs in regions. And, you know, that demand for our grain, our agribusiness products is insatiable. I mean, Indonesia, you know, it's set to be, you know, the fifth biggest economy in the world. India now the biggest country in the world. We've got to get into those markets, and we've got the things that people want to buy. It's just a question of coordinating to get it on scale, and you know, Craig was telling me 25% of products go past this port. Well, why aren't they going through this port? In the initiative that Guy's talking about.
And so in terms of the government policies, Craig, we've heard from Joe Biden, his administration, they've got what's known as the Inflation Reduction Act, trying to drive clean energy investment. What needs to happen from the Albanese government to try and match that?
First thing I'd say is we won't be able to match the US. That Reduction Act is all about manufacturing, and they're spending, you know, just incredible amounts of money. Europeans are looking at trying to respond to it. We are not big enough or have deep enough pockets for an across-the-board response. We have to look at where we are best suited to play it. You know, Bob has already talked about this region building on its strengths, and Jennifer has talked about we need to pick what we're good at and build on what we're good at. That's our best way. Instead of trying to find billions to be good at everything, let's pick out what we can play to and just do it, but back ourselves to do it.
One thing we are good at, I'll just finish with you, Bob, as from Business Hunter, is the people. And what I've picked up spending some time in Newcastle is the brightest and the best are staying here now. They're not leaving.
Yes, that's been a really notable and fantastic trend. It's something the region's been working at for a long time, but it's also showing the resilience of the ones that did stay here to keep at it. And you know, contemporaneously, we can now offer the young the jobs that they're getting qualified for as they come through the TAFE and the university system. And I think that'll continue to grow. It doesn't mean that we'll keep everybody. There's certainly trades up here that are provided in the capital cities that we can't compete with, that we want to complement. But the opportunity for people to learn here and stay here is really attractive, and we want to not only do that with our people, we want to do that with our research that we're bringing out of medical and energy and other areas up here to try and keep those industries growing here locally, that build our sovereignty, not just here in the region, but across the nation.
Bob Hawes, Guy Templeton, Craig Carmody, Jennifer Westacott, great to see you all. Thanks.
Thank you.
This program has been brought to you by the Business Council of Australia. Authorised by our Freelander, Business Council of Australia, Melbourne.